Hey, if your neighborhood group is meeting during this At the Movie series, congratulations. A lot of people take a little bit of a break during Christmas, which is fine. But if you're still meeting, I wanted to offer you something that is maybe a little bit unique to what we typically do. But during this series for 3 weeks, I want to dig into the prophecies about the birth of Jesus. So your group leader should have access to this worksheet right here. It's actually all the prophecies throughout the life of Jesus. And I want to just start at a high level. If you look at that sheet, and we can put a graphic on the screen in case you don't have it in front of you, you're going to notice that the first group of prophecies are around the beginning of Jesus' life. That's his birth. And then his ministry, then his death, then his resurrection. Over half of the prophecies about Jesus throughout his ministry are from the very last 3 days, his death and his resurrection. Why is that? Because everything culminates into the sacrifice of Christ for our sins. And actually, from the beginning of the gospel, when we talk about the birth of Jesus, it's pointing forward to his death. So one of the things that's really interesting as you read the birth narratives is to see glimpses of the cross before it's ever in view, because that's where we're headed. Second thing you'll notice about this worksheet, we're going to dig in just to the beginnings, that is the prophecies about his birth. Okay, so let's dig in. When we're talking about prophecy, there's really not just one kind of prophecy. We think of it like like Nostradamus. He predicts something, it comes true. So you find it in the Bible and then you find it in the newspaper. That's a simplistic way of looking at prophecy. There's actually 4 kinds of fulfillments. I don't want to get too deep into this, but I've given you 4 different graphics on this worksheet to illustrate the 4 ways that prophecy is fulfilled. I'm going to breeze through this, and then we're going to dig in to the Bible. Number 1, you've got a thumbprint. And that's what typically we think about prophecy is you've got a prediction here, and then the matching prediction is somewhere in the New Testament or in the newspaper. That's the standard way of viewing it. The second way of viewing it, there are a number of prophecies that have multiple fulfillments. So I've got a dashed line, each getting bigger. So for example, and we'll dig into this later, you've got the virgin birth. It's predicted in Isaiah 7:14. But that had an immediate initial fulfillment. But it was like you read that and you go, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And there was. Or King David, there's got to be more. And there was. Jesus is the ultimate fulfillment of some prophecies that had minor fulfillments along the way. A third way that prophecy is fulfilled is, it's not even strictly prophecy. It's just an allusion to something back in the Old Testament. Did you know that there's not a single fulfilled prophecy in the book of Revelation? You think, what do you mean? It's all about the Old Testament. Yes, but it's allusions. So I might say something. It's kind of like when you quote a movie line. I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch. Or you're saying, I have a chance. Those are allusions to a movie line that you're applying in the present. The New Testament does that all over with Jesus. Here's my favorite. You're going to see a symbol that has 2 arrows in a circle. And that is this idea of type and antitype. Those are actually Greek words. And what's going on is in the Old Testament, you have a type and Jesus is the antitype. So for example, Israel is the nation of God, is fully fulfilled in Jesus. He is the antitype of Israel. Or the temple, it's a place where you meet God. The temple's not the big deal. And in fact, it's been destroyed for 2,000 years. But Jesus now builds his church, which is the temple of God. So there's a type and an antitype, and we're going to see that all over the place. Let's begin. Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. It says, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. I don't know if you realize it, but you just read an antitype and a type. What is odd about this verse? Let me read it again. The book of genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, you might say, well, what's odd about it is nobody cares about genealogies. I mean, unless you're Jewish or Mormons care about genealogies, why would God introduce the gospel of Jesus Christ, the greatest message of all time, with a genealogy? Because the Jews needed one. Notice how it begins. The genealogy of David, the son of Abraham. What do you notice that's odd? It's backwards. Abraham was before David, but Matthew puts him up front. You say, big deal. Oh, it is a big deal. Because before typeset, when you didn't have bold print or exclamation points or underlining or red letters, the way you emphasize something is to put it up front. So the initial reader would go, whoa, David's first? Yes. And David, turns out, is what the whole book is about. Jesus is the fulfillment of the prophecy that God would send a son of David to always sit on his throne in perpetuity. So David is a big deal. And as you begin to read the genealogy, I know it's just a boring list of names. Until you dig in. Verse 17 says, so all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations. And from David to the deportation of Babylon, 14 generations. And from the deportation of Babylon to the Christ, 14 generations. Big deal, 14, 14, 14. If you're Jewish, it is a big deal. See, they didn't have a numbering system separate from their alphabet. You know what they used? Letters. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. And if you spell David in Hebrew, it's 3 letters, D, V, D. Just take out our vowels and you've got David, right? D, like in our alphabet, is their 4th letter. You know, want to guess what the V is? It's the 6th letter of the alphabet. So you have 4, 6, 4 equals 14. David's name has the numeric value of 14. Now, you might say, well, that's a little complicated. Not if you're Jewish. This is the kind of thing that rabbis did all the time. And when Matthew first wrote this, the rabbis who did not believe in Jesus may have said, well, I don't believe in Jesus, but Matthew, that was clever. And I think it's more than clever. I think God is designing the opening of the gospel to let you know that Jesus is the fulfillment, not just of specific words on a page, but of all of Israel's history. So here's what I would encourage you to talk about in your group for just a little bit. What are some other items in the Old Testament that Jesus fulfills? I've already mentioned 2 others. The nation of Israel, Jesus is the embodiment of Israel. And the temple. Jesus is the embodiment of the temple. There are other ideas, and maybe you can find some like Sabbath, water, bread, life. Jesus is not just the fulfillment of words on a page, but he is the fulfillment of the plan of God from the meticulous form of a genealogy all the way back to the beginning of Genesis. And that's where we'll pick up next week.